Okie dokie. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to start by identifying place value. So this is from 4th grade. So whenever I call you, I just want you to take yourself off of mute real quick and say the place value that comes next. Once I pull it up, and that will make sense. Nope. And right here. Okay, let's see. I need someone to start us off with this blue place value, that first one. What's our first place value that we start off with? Leyland, go ahead, sweetheart.
The ones place.
Yes, ma'am. There it is, ones place. Okay, what comes next, Jaquel? What comes next? Take yourself off mute. What comes after the ones? Oh, I missed it. Can you say that one more time, please?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. What comes after the ones place? We have the...
Oh, my bad. 100.
Oh, almost. The tens. You were getting ahead of us. I think it's because I'd already showed it, and you're like, oh, the next one's hundreds. So yes, tens. You got it. Totally. Thank you. So I accidentally just kind of told y'all the next one. Actually, Jaquel, since you already know the next one, what's the next one?
100.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. Josiah B. What comes after hundreds?
Thousands.
Thousands. And Cullen, what comes after thousands?
10,000.
Thank you. Great job. All right. Miss Haley, I want you to finish chewing and then go ahead. Oh, I just told you. No, you didn't see it. No, go back. All right, Haley, what comes after thousands? You didn't see anything.
10,000.
Yes, thank you. And Samira, what comes after 10,000?
Millions.
Oh, you skipped one.
10 millions?
No, we're still in the thousands.
100.
No, we're in the thousands. All right, Jamari, what comes after 10,000?
100,000.
Yeah, 100,000. So Samara, what comes next? 100,000s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you meant. I know. And last but not least, Mackenzie, what's our last place we're going to do today?
Millions.
Millions. Great job, guys. Okay, so now I have all of them up. And at the beginning, I'm not sure if you noticed or not, but there was a digit 1 in each of those place values. And so below the place value, it has how much the 1 is worth, the value of the 1 in that place value. So I'm going to stop screen sharing for just a second, and I'm going to send a link in the chat to a Padlet. And so on that Padlet, I want you to say any patterns that you notice. It can be about the values. It can be about like the names of the place values, just any sort of patterns that you notice at all. And I'm gonna put the link. And once I put the link in here, I'll pull that screen back up so you can look at it some more. And I'm going to give you 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond. Please make sure that you put your name with your Padlet response. There you go, guys. There you go. And here is the screen, and I'm going to start our timer. 1 minute and 30 seconds. Here you go. All right, time is up. So finish up what you are typing. Thank you for following directions. All right. That's totally fine if your internet went in and out. I get that. Let's make sure we are following directions when they're being asked. Okay, so you should be coming on back now. You had 1 minute and 30 seconds. You should already have stuff typed. So come on back. Some of the patterns that I'm noticing, or not patterns I'm noticing, but some of the patterns that you put on here is we are going up, sorry. Fumi said the pattern I notice is it's being multiplied by 10 each time. And then Josiah B also talked about like the names of the place values. He says it goes like ones, tens, hundreds, and it keeps going up like that. And it totally does because it goes ones, tens, hundreds, then it goes 1,000s, 10,000s, 100,000s, 1 millions, 10 millions, 100 millions. So great noticing there. Haley says it adds a 0 each time you go up a place value. Thank you for saying that because we are going to be talking about what adding a 0 is. We'll go into that a little bit more. Lee also noticed that as well. Great job. And Jaquel, yes, it's going up in value every single time. And Leyland said that all of them do have the 1 in it. It definitely does because the digit 1 was there, so the value is going to have a 1, but it changed as it went over. Great. Good job. All right, I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and then I'm going to switch back over. So I'm going to switch over to my board. So some of you, this might look a little familiar. Last year, if you were with me in 4th grade, we did our bunny hops across our place values. So if you were there, you know what I'm talking about. If not, you're gonna learn today, guys. And we're also going to add in a decimal slide today. So I got lots of moves up my sleeves, and I hope you're ready for it. Thank you all for participating so well. So we are going to start over here with what we already know, and with the lower end of things, because it's always easier for my brain to think about patterns and stuff with smaller numbers before applying it to the bigger numbers. So I'm going to say that I have the number 55. So I'm going to write it over here. I have a 5 in the tens place and a 5 in the ones place. And I want to know the value of these digits. So how much are they worth? Can I have Genesis? How much is a 5 worth in the ones place?
5.
Yes, ma'am. It's worth 5. Thank you. All right. And how much is a 5 worth in the tens place, Maeve?
5 in the tens place is worth 50.
Thank you. And I appreciate that complete sentence. Great job. So that's worth 50. Just like if you had 5 $10 bills, you would have $50. So great job. What did I have to do with my value? So both of these are the digit 5, but they're worth different things because they're in different place values. So what happened to this 5 to make it turn into a 50? What happened? Some of you already hinted at this when you were talking about your patterns. Fumi, I think I saw that you wrote it. Would you take yourself off of mute and talk to us about what happened?
It multiplied 10 times.
Yes, it was multiplied by 10. Great job. So I'm going to draw my arrow and I'm going to say multiplied by 10. That's a great, easy way to show my work that the place value went up. And so it was multiplied by 10. And Haley and I think a couple of other students in here also said we added a 0 on the end because first it was just a 5 and then there was a 0 that got added on the end. So the thing I want to say about that is if I gave you $0, you'd be like, Miss Chalfant, that's not worth anything. No, thank you. So adding a 0 on the end doesn't actually add any value. 0 is worth nothing. But I understand what you're saying, is you're saying we put a 0 on the end of the digit to increase the value. But what's really happening is we're multiplying by 10. Does that make sense? Kind of. Okay, we'll keep going over it. So now I'm going to go up even more. I'm going to get a number. I'm going to have 555. So what would be the value of my 5 in the hundreds place? Nellie, go ahead.
The value is 500.
Thank you. Yes, the value is 500. So I want us to think, let me back up. So I went from my ones place to my tens place, and I bunny hopped up, which is multiplying by 10. So some of you might remember my bunny hop from place value to place value. Whenever I bunny hop up, it means I'm multiplying by 10. That's just the way that I kind of remember it. So if I'm going from my ones to my hundreds, I'm not going to bunny hop. My bunny hop is not going to get me there. So I need to do a much bigger hop. I'm going to do something I call a kangaroo jump, because clearly kangaroos can jump way further than bunnies. So I'm going to do a kangaroo jump to my hundreds place. So what had to happen from this 5 to now have a value of 500? What did we have to do to kangaroo jump from the ones to the hundreds place? What happened there? Genesis said that we multiplied or times it. Yes, we are multiplying it. Correct. What did we need to multiply by? 5 times what gives me 500? Jamari, go ahead.
It gives you 5,000.
Oh, no. You're skipping ahead. Not 5,000, because that would be if we multiplied again.
Your question
Right.
then.
You went ahead of me. So what did I have to do from 5 to get to 500? What did I multiply?
You had to multiply by probably by 30 or
No, not 30. Hold on to that thought, Jamari. Hold on to it. Mackenzie, what did I need to multiply 5 by to get to 500?
You need to multiply 5 by 100.
By 100, yes. So times 100. 5 times 100 equals 500. So whenever I kangaroo jump or I go up 2 place values, I'm really multiplying the value times 100. And the reason that works is because from the ones place to the tens place is one jump, my bunny jump, and that's 10 times 10. And then I would have to do another one, which is another times 10. And we know 10 times 10 equals 100. So 10 times 10 equals 100. That's why if we do 2 jumps, it would be times 100. Does anybody want to take a guess at what we would be multiplying by if we had to jump across 3 place values and we had the value of 5,000? What would you need to do to this value, this 5 value, to make it 5,000? What would you need to multiply by? Anybody have a guess? Colin, go ahead.
1,000.
Yes, 1,000. Right. So 10 times 10 times another 10 is 1,000. Because just like y'all said, every time we're multiplying by 10, we're adding the 0 on the end. We're just bumping it up a place value. So great job, guys. Yes, ma'am, Laylan, you have a question.
So my question is, can I copy this down?
Yeah, you can copy it down, absolutely. All right, so Genesis put something in the chat, and she is getting us to our next step. So this whole time, we've been bunny hopping and kangaroo jumping forward, and we've been multiplying. So now I want us to talk about what happens when we back it up and we go backwards. So backing up is the inverse or the opposite of going forward. So we would also do the inverse or the opposite operation. So what is the inverse operation of multiplication? Go ahead, Genesis, and tell us.
Divide.
Yes, dividing would be the opposite. So whenever we're going backwards in place value, we are going to divide because we would just be doing the opposite of what we did to get forward. So I'm going to erase this real quick just so it's easier for us to see. So I want us to think about 50. Again, we had a 5 right here. Let me put my 5 back. We had a 5 and the value was 50, and we had a 5 and the value was 5. So if I went back a place value, what would I need to divide 50 by to get to 5? What do you think, Josiah? What would we need to divide 50 by to get to 5?
Divide 50 to get to 5.
Yes, we are going to be dividing. You're absolutely right. Divide by what?
10.
Yes, great job. So we're going to divide by 10 to go backwards. So here's where it kind of goes to 5th grade stuff. And so sometimes it's not going to say divide by 10. Sometimes it's going to say 1/10 of the value, which means the exact same thing. This still means that we are going to take this number and split it into 10 parts, and we only want one of them. That's exactly what you do when you divide. You split 50 into 10 parts, and we only take one of them. So if you ever see something and it says, oh, the 3 was 1/10 of the value of 30. So 1/10 of 30 would be 3, because 30 divided by 10 equals 3. So just know that whenever you're dividing by 10 or finding 1/10 of the value, you're just moving one place value backwards. So let's also do it from the hundreds place. If I have a 5 in my hundreds place and I have the value of 500, which y'all already told me because you are excellent, you're doing awesome, so proud of you. And if I'm going to go all the way back to 5, what do I have to do to 500, the value 500, to get the value of 5? I'm trying to see who I haven't heard from here lately. Yes, Nellie, go ahead. Take yourself off mute.
What you have to do is divide 500 with 100 to get to the ones.
Yes, excellent job. So Nellie said we're going to divide it by 100. Just like before, we would be kangaroo jumping back. So we would be dividing by 10, which is essentially dividing by 100. So whenever we do 2 jumps, it's dividing by 100. Can anybody take a guess at what fraction would represent dividing by 100? If dividing by 10 was the same as saying 1/10 of the value, if we were to do the fraction for dividing by 100, what fraction would we get? Fumi, you want to try? No? Okay, that's fine. Laylan, what fraction do you think?
The fraction that I think is 1/100.
Yes, exactly. Great job. Laylan's picking up on those patterns. Great job. So we could also say it was 1/100th of the value. All right, what if I did a huge jump and I went across 3 place values? Colin picked up on this earlier, and he said we would multiply times 1,000 for 3. So what would we do if we were going backwards for 3 place values? What do you think would happen? Go ahead, Samira.
The fraction will be 1,000.
1/1000. And then I saw Cullen put in the chat, he said divide by 1,000. Great job. And we know that when we're dividing by something by the power of 10, however many zeros it has, that's how many zeros we take off. So if I had the number 5,000 and I was going to divide it by 1,000, there are 3 zeros in 1,000. So I would take away 3 zeros from 5,000. So I would be left with 5, which makes sense because I would be going backwards 3 place values. I go from the thousands and I go back 1, 2, 3 to the ones. So I'd end up with 5 again. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about with you today is the decimal slide. So the decimal slide is the same thing that we've been doing. I just haven't shown you how it works. So it's still the same pattern. It's still the same concept. It's just a different way you can think about it. And it might be easier to show your work this way with what you're having to do, because you're not going to have all whole numbers like you did in 4th grade. You're going to also be doing decimals. So, and don't get freaked out, because just like with whole numbers, all you're doing is multiplying or dividing by powers of 10, which you've been doing. So you're adding or taking away those zeros on the end because you're changing the place values. I'm going to find my eraser, and I'm going to show you what the decimal slide means. So if I have the number 55, I don't know, I'm really digging the number 5 today, so I'm having lots of 5s in my numbers. So can anyone tell me, where is the decimal at with my number 55? Where would it be? Maeve, would you want to tell me where the decimal is at? Where would it be located for 55?
I think the decimal would be located, I don't know how to explain it.
Just try.
Like, I think it'd be, in front of the first 5.
Okay, so you're thinking it's in front of this first 5?
I don't know, sure.
No, you're totally fine. Thank you, Maeve. So, Maeve, if this was where our decimal was, could you read this number?
Okay, 0.55.
So that's how a lot of adults would read it, and you are not incorrect. How would our 5th grade Smarty Pants read that number? Because we've been working on how to read it. We would say, think about the place values. And it's totally fine if you don't remember.
Yeah, I don't really remember.
That's totally fine. Thank you for sharing. So Maeve says she thinks the decimal goes right here. Does anybody think they can read the decimal? She said 0.55, which is not wrong because this is 0.55, but there is a more, there's a better way that we can read this number. Can I have Colin? Colin, will you read this number as a decimal?
And 55.
Okay, so Colin remembered that our decimal says and. Yes, you're right. And then we say 55. You're missing one piece though. 55. And then we have to say the place value of this last digit. Do you remember, Colin?
And 50 ones?
No, we're not in the ones
55
place.
ones?
We're not in the ones place because the decimal's right here. So we have our ones here. Then we have, what's the next place value? Ones, we have a decimal,
Tenths.
tenths, and then
Hundreds.
hundredths. Okay, now read that number for me.
And 55 hundredths.
There you go. And 55 hundredths. Or we can say a 0 there. 0 and 55 hundredths. All right. So this is 55 hundredths. Now, if I wanted just the number 55, we have to remember that the decimal is always to the right of the ones place. So this 55, this is in the tens place. This 5 is in the ones place. So my decimal is going to be right here. Even though I don't have anything in my tenths and hundredths and thousandths place, the decimal is still here. It's just invisible. So we always have to recognize that. So if we're going to multiply by 10 or move it up a place value, what does this number become? 55 multiplied by 10, or bunny hopping this number up. What does 55 become when we multiply it by 10? Asia, what do you think? Lee, what do you think? If I multiply 55 times 10, what does that equal? All right, Nellie, if I multiply 55 times 10, what do I get?
If you times it by 10, you get 5,500.
Oh, you went one
Oh
too
wait,
many.
no, 550.
There you go, 550. So we end up with 550 because we did times 10. So we hopped one place value or added 1 0 on the end. And the other way that you can think of that is the decimal slide. So we just slide our decimal over one place value. So our decimal goes here. And now we need to fill in this place value with a 0 because we know a 0 just holds a place for us. So that's our decimal slide. It makes it easier when you're having to move decimals to different place values. So if I have the number 4 and 6 tenths and I need to multiply it by 10, it needs to go up one place value. I can't just add a 0 on the end because that didn't change. It's still 4 and 6 tenths, or it just says 4 and 60 hundredths. We know that those are the same thing though. We know that it's the same amount shaded in. I didn't actually increase my value there. So what we have to do is instead of just adding a 0, we have to move that decimal, because that's really what's happening when we're adding the zeros on the end, is we're changing where the decimal is to increase the value. So for our decimals, we slide it over and the decimal now goes here and I have the number 46. So 4 and 6 tenths multiplied by 10 is 46. So I'm going to kind of stop us there for now. And we are going to keep going with this next week. So it's okay if it's still a little fuzzy, if it's not completely making sense. Just try to start thinking about it and processing this. Do you have any questions before I tell you about your assignment for today? I see there are still blue hands up, but I think they were for volunteering answers. So if you don't have a question, can you put your blue hands down for me, please? All right, Samira, I see that your blue hand is still up. What's your question?
I thought zeros was for holding the place value in other side.
You're right. Zeros are for holding the place value, because when we moved that decimal, there was already a 6 here, so we didn't need to add a 0. There was nothing we needed to hold. The 6 was already there. But for a number like 55, if we multiply it by 10, the decimal's right here. If I move it over a place, there's nothing there. So I need to hold the place value with a 0. Oh, sorry, you couldn't see that very well. So it's okay if that doesn't completely make sense yet. Like I said, we're going to continue working with that. So good question. Yes, ma'am, Nellie, I see your hand is still raised.
So if I times the 55 by 100, would I get?
What do you think you would get if you multiplied 55 by 100?
5,500?
Because you can think about it as the decimals right here, and I need to move it. Well, here, let me write it down here. So with 55, let me move it down a little more. With 55, our decimal's right here. I'm multiplying it by 100, so that's 2 place values that I need to do.
Oh, okay, now I understand.
2, my decimal is here, and I need to fill in with zeros. So it becomes 5,500, just like you said. Good question. All right, guys. So your assignment for today. In Echo, you have one video that I need you to watch. It's a fun video. It has a really catchy song, and it talks about the different place values and fractions and decimals. So just kind of summarizing what we've been learning this week. And then the second activity is nice and quick. It's not really challenging. It just wants you to identify the different place values. So it's going to have some numbers written, and they have decimals in them. And it says, circle the tenths place. And so there's a red circle, and you just drag it over and circle the digit that's in the tenths place. And then you take that screenshot and submit it onto Echo. And it's only 5 questions. But take your time. It is a grade. And if you need assistance with it, if you go into Echo at the top where my Bitmoji classroom is, remember there's an interactive notebook up there. So there's a place value chart in that notebook. So you can use that place value chart to help you as well. All right, do you have any further questions before I let you go and get started on your assignment?